You've been playing that wrong. This is a video in a series of videos on rules that people seem to commonly get confused or misplay in the game Scythe. And this video concerns the costs of the production action. I see a lot of questions about the costs of the production action. So let's go look at the produce space on my player board. At this stage of the game, you can see that I've upgraded. I've got a mill on the board. I have 3 workers that I've gotten into play in addition to the 2 that I got at the start of the game. And so we're at a fairly advanced stage of the game here. And I now want to take a production action. I'm going to be able to produce on 3 hexes plus the hex on which I have a mill. Okay, but I'm only going to produce on 2 hexes just for simplicity's sake. Now when I take the production action, I'm going to move my player marker to the production area of my player board. The first thing I have to do is pay the costs. Now one of the hexes that I'm going to want to produce on is this village space right here. I'm going to want to get 2 more villagers into the game, 2 more workers into the game by taking advantage of that space. And the other space I'm going to want to produce on is this farm here. I'm going to want to get 1 food onto that farm because of the worker that's already on that space. Okay? So the very first thing I need to do is I need to pay the cost. Now a lot of people seem to be a little confused about what the cost is in the case that I'm getting villagers into the game. Because when I get 2 villagers into the game, each of the workers on the village space can produce 1 villager. So I have 2 there, so I can get 2 into the game. I'm going to remove these villagers from my player mat. And that's going to expose a new cost. And players seem to be confused about whether or not they now have to pay 1 popularity in order to get these villagers into the game. The answer is you do not. All right? So my cost for taking this action this time is what is shown at the beginning of the turn. My only cost is to pay 1 power, 1 bolster from the power strip on the game board. So this is my cost. And that's my cost no matter how many of these hexes I produce or how many workers there are in the space that does the production. I don't have to pay more power for everything I put down on the board. I don't have to pay more power for every hex that I activate. That cost, that 1 power, is the cost for everything that follows on this particular turn. I now can get my 2 workers into the game as I'd planned to do, and I can now get my 1 food into the game as I'd planned to do. And by rights, I can also produce on the mill space and also produce on that other tundra space. And let's just say I'm not going to do that for now, just to keep it simple. Now let's say the next time, of course I got to take a different action, but now I'm going to come back later in the game and produce again. And let's just say that I don't want to produce on this village space anymore. I only want to produce on the other spaces of the board. Some players seem to be confused that you only pay the cost of production when you're producing workers. That's not true. You pay that cost every time you produce. So even though I'm not going to move that guy there, he's going to stay on the board this turn. I don't want to get more villagers into the game. I want to produce. I want to get food. I want to get oil. And in order to do that, I have to pay all the costs that are shown before I put anything on the map. So I have to pay 1 bolster, 1 power unit there, and I have to pay 1 popularity. So the first thing I do is I knock down my power, and the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to knock down my popularity, and now I am permitted to activate, in my case, 3 hexes plus the hex that has the mill on it. Deciding not to get some villagers in, but I can produce a food, and then on my second hex I can produce an oil, and then on the hex in which I have the mill and a worker I can produce 2 oil, 1 for each of them. Now I still have a hex left. I haven't used them all. I used 1 to produce food, 1 to produce oil, and then my mill space to produce more oil. I haven't activated this one yet. So if I wanted to, I could produce my last villager onto this space. Actually, it's stupid not to, right? So let's do that, right? I don't have to pay this coin this turn. The next time I produce, that coin will be a new cost for me, but not this turn because it wasn't showing at the beginning of the turn. Hey, I've got my last worker out on the board, and I get an achievement. That's how you pay the costs on the production area of your player mat.